Chapter 32. He laughed. What impeccable timing. It's so rarely on schedule. It must be you. And here's the station again, he said, as they neared a hut. He's even smaller than it appeared. It's even smaller than it appeared last night, he grinned. You know, we have horse races, dances, concerts, fairs, tennis, bowls. We have hotels, a library, even an underground forge. We have schools and churches, you name it, it all goes on. I didn't mean to suggest, I know, he said smiling. I'm just proud to be from here, that's all. And they're all very proud of you, John. Thank you for being so kind to me yesterday. Your whole family is lovely and so generous. Mum's a bit of a handful at times, but she's very good for the town. Always pushing hard to improve things around here as best she can. At Fleur's nod, he continued. I know she gave you the impression that she. Fleur squeezed his arm. No need to explain. I'm not offended. I'm a model woman with broad shoulders, and I can handle the pursed lips of the previous generations. I didn't plan this, John. Life's just gone a little crooked for me, that's all. She gave him a big hug, keep it deliberately brief so she wouldn't cry. The rattle of timber and the screech of iron combined with clouds of steam to announce the train's arrival. She could taste the middle of the engine and the tracks. People were hanging out of the windows and calling out to others at the station, passing on messages from family and friends. Bursts of laughter and whistles to catch attention were all part of the cacophony. Men rushed up with bags of mail and other products to be loaded, while passengers alighted or stepped on board alongside Fleur. She found a seat and lowered the window to say a final farewell to her friend. What will you do? John asked. Fleur smiled more bravely than she felt, added a breezy tone she certainly wasn't feeling. What I know, back to Adelaide and the business. She put her hand on Billy, and what will be, will be. She reached her other hand to squeeze his. Happy flying. Good luck, John. You too, he responded, squeezing her back. I hope. He trailed off, unable to find the right words. She nodded. I know. Now go. Go back to Eva, or she'll have something to say. High tea and all that. He laughed aloud. She's unstoppable. Fleur waved, and John reluctantly turned away, slowly lopping back in the direction they'd come from. Fleur deliberately avoided staring out wistfully at the desert, reminding her of what might have been. She pulled out a book and was determined to lose herself. She did not wish to speak to anyone, so she hoped the book and her focused attention, even if she did. So she had the book and her focused attention, even if she didn't take it in a single word, would dissuade anyone from striking up a conversation. She was grateful that day, at least. She was not feeling the familiar nausea. A baby. If she was honest, it was privately exciting and something to look forward to. Even without Tom, she would raise her child with love and all the tenderness that man can raise her with. She had the means to give her child anything that was needed in life, and for that alone, Fleur knew she would be grateful. Her baby would want for nothing except its father, and she would want for nothing except its father too. Tears stung, but she would not let them fall. She opened the book and blinked them away. Absently, she heard whistles, doors banging, and increasing the sound of the engine revving to be on its way. A man, and presumably his son, sat opposite her. She couldn't avoid the eye contact, so she smiled. Good morning, the man said, lifting his hat and then removing it to his lap. Fleur looked at the boy. He was probably 12. Hello, she said. Dad says the train struggles to get up the hill and out of the farina, he said, by way of introduction. I'm Billy. Fleur grinned, then glanced at the father, who shrugged and said, It's true. You might have felt it on the way into Farina. It all but coasted down the hill after a struggle to get to the top just before it reaches town. I came in late last night, and I have to admit I didn't notice because I was so tired. That's a quick visit. He raised his brows, opening a question, but she didn't answer it. Yes, very, she said, dipping her gaze. Well, the point is, we don't always get up the first time, he said. I think Billy has hoping that happens. I am. Hey, Dad, can we go more to the front to look out? Miss, she obliged. Appleby. Thank you, Miss Appleby. Could I leave our things here and we'll return? It's the lad's first train trip, so I should take him towards the engine. Of course, your stuff is safe. I'm here all the way to Adelaide, so I won't let anyone take your seats, I promise. Oh, excellent. Thank you. Come on then, Billy. Let's see if we can get you a peek at the front. It was a mercy for Fleur that they'd departed. Maybe they'd be gone for an hour and should have that time alone with her thoughts. The train began to roll, but it didn't. But it also seemed to be pushing hard. Now that she understood the reason, she too was intrigued to see if they could crest the hill on the first thunder towards it. It seemed everyone else in her carriage knew the track record too, and excited tension rippled through the air. The train was gathering speed, travelling much faster out of the town's reaches than she thought was possible in such a short run. She sat forward and watched. They were moving up the hill, and now it was as though everyone, including her, was holding a collective breath as the train searched for the summit and failed. Wheels squealed, iron complained, and there was a shuddering pause, as gently as first, and then gathering to a slow but steady speed. The train began to roll back down the hill into town, accompanied by whistles, laughter, and sarcastic but somehow affectionate cheering. She joined in the laughter, her first genuine amusement in months. It was good for her. The gun tried again. This time everyone in her vicinity began a sort of soft and encouraging cheer. "Come on," one bloke yelled. "You can do it," another called out. Everyone shared smiles and chuckles as the trains gathered speed again. Billy must have been half chuffed, Fleur thought, before imagining the frustration on the engine driver hearing all the catcalls. But he'd be used to it. They were hurtling towards the incline now. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw a streak of someone running towards the train, running alongside the train, and the person waving probably in farewell. The train hooted as if in response to Unix's sign. "Yeah, we'll make it," someone said. But Fleur wasn't so sure, and her instincts were right. As if the train was clutching at the crest with its fingertips, the top of the hill slipped away, and once again the train slid backwards into town. Inside the carriage, the cheering intensified. Fleur imagined this must be a regular sport for the travellers. They might even lay bets on how many tries it would take. She was openly laughing now with everyone else in her compartment. "Third time lucky," she said to the neighbour. "Maybe," the woman said with a chuckle. The men in the engine were obviously feeding it furiously for the third attempt. The sound of it was different now, more like a hungry beast at it as it sped forward at what felt like full pelt. There was a sudden clatter to Fleur's side. Her neighbour gave a small alarm shriek. The window nearest to Fleur was darkened by a shape. A man had leapt into the moving carriages. What on earth was going on? Fleur thought, her hand instinctively going to her belly once more. The train was reaching the base of the incline, travelling at the highest throttle it could under the circumstance, when the man bent his head to look inside the carriage. Impossible. Fleur saw Tom Catchlove grinning his crooked smile, and then his mouth widened to full beam of white teeth. His laugh twinkled his eyes in that way that melted the rush of wind whipping at his hair. "Tom, Tom!" she shrieked, half crying, half hysterical, with just enough presence of mind to know neither of those qualities usually belonged to her. "Tom!" she screeched again, unable to believe it was him. "If we get over this top this time, I'll have to go all the way to Cornell here," he called through the glass screen lopsidedly. People were moving to open the door and haul him in, with Fleur anxiously standing by, terrified he'd fall off or fall under the wheels on the track. And then suddenly he was inside. The door slammed, and three burly men watched unhelpfully as both Tom and Fleur collapsed to their knees in each other's arms. Her shoulders shook with the helpless tears that came. Real sobs this time, as she felt the warmth and hard muscle body of Tom holding her close, saying nothing, both of them listening to the raucous cheers as the train failed yet again to tip itself over the summit. Through the cacophony, Fleur finally pulled back from Tom. "I have so much to say." He grinned. You've said it all by being here, and you're wearing green. You look so beautiful." "No, there's more, but how come you're here? They said you've gone." I should have been gone. Well out of Farina by now, but my horse pulled up lame. I brought her back and was intended to catch up tomorrow, but an old black coat Alf whistled for my attention. "Out from the Exchange Hotel," Tom laughed. "Yes. Are you old friends or what?" She gave a watery laugh back. "No, Bruce Bell found him last night." "My gosh, now you know the Bells. You haven't been here more than 12 hours. Let them all slept over," she said, drying her tears. He looked amused. "Anyway, Alf said some woman from Adelaide was looking for me. It had to be you, and then someone at the station said they'd seen a beautiful city lady in green leaving on the train, having hugged a local lad." Fleur nodded. "John Bell. So I chased the train, hoping against hope it would fail to reach the top end of the hill, as it often does." She looked into his eyes, so full of sparkle and affection, and knew her visit, every last tear of fear and sorrow that she'd missed him, was worth it, because here he was, staring at her in what looked like similar wonder. "We found each other once more," he said, as though he were listening in on her thoughts. "I'll never let you out of my sight again, never." Good, I want you to marry me today. He pointed out the window. The train had come to stop once more, just outside the station. Come on, let's get off the train, go to see the mayor or our local constable. One of them can marry us. Tom, I haven't anything to wear to be a bride. Doesn't matter what you wear, Fleur, he murmured. It will be coming off soon after. He lifted an eyebrow, grinning at her. She toppled into his arm once again, kissing his neck and hugging him hard. Come on, you two lovebirds. We're getting off. Well, come on, you two lovebirds. We're all getting off. One of the rescuers said, hurry up, or we'll have to book you a room at one of the pubs. Tom leapt up and helped Fleur to her feet. Thanks for helping me on board. Seems you had urgent business, another man quipped. They all shared an affectionate grin. We're off to get married, Fleur said, sounding breathless and entirely caught up with their excitement in the morning. I should think so, with all that canoodling in public, another said, but without malice. A round of congratulations followed as more people arrived into the tiring car to get off the train. What are they going to do? Tom asked as the train backed alongside the station platform. Try again in an hour. Engine driver's curse so much he needs ale to calm his throat. Fleur and Tom were married that day, as he threatened. Eva Bell, despite her own event preparations, flew into action and found a suitable cream silk dress. Fleur, beyond grateful, didn't ask where from. Eva also insisted that the whole group of guests arriving for John's event first stopped at the local hall, really just a shed behind the Patterson's house, where they used to hold dances and concerts with a piano, so they could all bear witness to the civil ceremony. Which everyone cheerfully did. Eva sent Brucey sculling off for some wildflowers, and he returned with a small bush of wild daisies in pink, mauve, and a few whites, which Eva laced through Fleur's hair. It will do, she pronounced. I find myself thanking you again, Eva. I'm very happy for you, and especially because of the child. Does he know? Not yet. It will be my wedding gift to him. Fleur grinned and put a finger to her lips. The hurriedly put together shotgun wedding, not that Tom knew, was over in a few minutes, and suddenly they were being urged to share their first kiss as Mr. and Mrs. Catchlove. Old Tins had been tied to the cart that Tom had driven into town, and with some stores thrown into the back of it, they set off for Wichita Station. Half the town waving them off with catcalls and cheers. Privately, Fleur thought that she couldn't have planned a more perfect wedding. Brief, painless, almost no socializing, and back in Tom's arms in less than an hour since she'd clambered into her borrowed dress. Fleur snuggled up to Tom, holding his arm tightly. He grinned. You meant it, didn't you? You're not letting me go. He kissed top of her head. Tom, there are things to be spoken about. I know, can we talk about them later? She shook her head. No, I wanted you to know that I did not send that letter. He stayed quiet for a few breathless moments, and then nodded at Irma. Yes, I can show you how different my handwriting is. He shook his head with disgust. Why didn't I guess that? Why would you? Because you left me so in love. I should have trusted your love and how honest you are. Perhaps you should have, but I'm well aware of how cunning Irma can be. I imagine she was extremely convincing. It even sounded like you when I read it, Fleur, so I don't blame you. He hugged her tight. I'm glad you came after me. Blimey, Fleur, you could have missed me by a whisker. I thought I could kiss that lame horse of yours. She's called Ginger. Will she be all right? Yes, with all the right care, but I couldn't risk taking her further. Fleur nodded gratefully. Listen, Tom. While Irma told a raft of lies in the letter, she did manage to stumble upon the truth of one aspect. He glanced at her, which is that I'm pregnant, Tom, but I'm having your baby. He hauled on the reins, and the wagons jutted to a halt. He stared at her up and down. His gaze helplessly returned to her belly. She realized she had once again placed a protective hand across her mind. She nodded, tears welling. I've never slept with anyone but you, Tom. You must have sensed that, surely. I don't know why I allowed myself to believe you would let anyone like Jimmy Collin get that close. Ah, she said, giving shut up. Perish that thought. We're having a baby? Tom asked again as she nodded, matching his lunatic grin. He stood, still holding the rein, and let rip with a howl that echoed across the landscape. I'm going to be a father? He yelled, laughing at his joy. She hushed him. I think we need to keep it a secret for a while. Only John's family knows. Promise me. I promise, so we can still, Yes, you dogged. Our baby's only about an inch in size. It won't know what you're up to. And now the laughter sounded against the red desert. Chapter 33. They agreed to meet at Wichella for a week. Conveniently, everyone was away, so the house was theirs, but they left no traces other than a track between a back bedroom, the bathroom, and the kitchen. The week had passed in a tumult of lovemaking, grazing on whatever stores they had carried with them, and watching the stars each night from the wild veranda of the first floor, sipping tea as they sat close on an old armchair that had been dragged out there. Fleur listened, enraptured, as Tom guided her through the Milky Way, pointing out celestial bodies she never heard of, and others that were simply fun to listen to. That's Venus, pretty close to the teapot of Sagittarius, he sighed as he squinted. And the waxing moon is near Saturn, do you see? She nodded, just enjoying the sound of his enthralled voice. I want you to teach our child all of this, she said. Then you'll have to agree to make regular visits into the outback because you can't see much of this in the city. It's only in the desert you get to commune with the firmament. She smiled, and each year we shall come and spend early spring here. He leaned down and she kissed him slow and tenderly. Now I have a couple of pieces of information to share, he said. You do? She sounded intrigued. Good information, I hope. I can't take any more bad news. It's not bad, but it's only good depending on how you view it. Do you mean you, as in general, or do you mean me in particular? Everything for me is about you in particular first, you and our child. She felt her heart give. How could she have ever lost this? The Flinders Rangers, the oldest of gods, had been very generous to her with their gift. After all their sorrow of this year, the happiness she felt in this moment couldn't be overstated or overwhelmed. All right, tell me, she said, shifting her position so she could look at him squarely. Do you remember the family that you and your father had to visit when you picked up my mother and my sister for burial? They're hard to forget, Tom. You gave a soft sort of scream. I met them again recently. You did? They were as repugnant as we both recall. That's disappointing, she said, unsure of where this was leading. But they, I mean, Mr. and Mrs. Darnell, knowing your memory, you remember my aunt Elizabeth Darnell. She accused me of being precocious when I was just displaying good manners. He nodded. Do you remember the girl at the window? We saw her when we were in the garden. Yes, a pale creature. Well, she's still pale, but she's also grand. She's my cousin. I've discovered her name is Emily, and she's everything her parents are not. She's normal for a start, and she takes no prisoners, Fleur. She reminds me of you, and I promise I'll introduce you both. If you like her, then I know I shall. She's single-minded and desperate to get away from the clutch of her parents. I mean, she probably loves them, but their attitude frustrates her. She's a modern woman and shows none of the hideous pretension. Fleur nodded. How did this come about? Tom explained. So now you have a family, even if you only count that one lovely cousin. He nodded. Feels good. But the best bit about Emily was that she could tell me more about the man my mother loved. The man who fathered me. Again, Tom explained all he discovered. He pulled out the card and showed Fleur. She was quietly shocked, but was careful not to show it. It isn't much to go on. No, I've been thinking it all through since she gave it to me, and I've decided I don't wish to find out more about him. I had a mother and a father, the only one I knew about, and the man who came before us is simply that, a man, a stranger. I'm wondering about the proverbial can of worms, Fleur. What if finding him sets off a new pile of problems and emotions I don't need? I just want to get on with life with you. I've imagined how me arriving into his life, if I can find him, would be disruptive. He may have his own family now, a wife, other children, perhaps even grandchildren, and all I would do is create new turmoil for all of those people. It might unsettle him as he remembers Mum and their love and being forbidden to be together. Tom shook his head. I think it's risking risking upset. She nodded, hugging him tighter. We were so fortunate to find each other again. I agree. Perhaps you should let that be enough and not hold on to old hurts. The hurt was your mother's, and she came to terms with it. And as you rightly say, he's a stranger, whereas Vern Catchler was your father in every way. Tom pondered. Tom pondered this some more, nodding finally. I'm glad you agree. Our child will never know his or her grandfathers, as far as they're concerned. That's Henry Appleby and Vern Catchler. He seemed to hesitate. Sounds like you have more to say, Tom. There is more. He took a deep breath. I heard about an older house which I was at the wool store and was interested in seeing it. When she gave him a look of inquiry, I think my mother gave me an interest in history. The house holds many stories of past lives. Fleur knew to remain patient with Tom. I'm listening. It's a rather grand old place on a hill overlooking pastures for as far as my gaze could reach. You've seen it? He nodded. I've been in it. They let me have the keys, he admitted, sounding embarrassed. It's been left to go to ruin, I gather. It was built by a gentleman landowner in the previous century, one of the early settlers of South Australia. It's called Drummondore. Where is this house? It's out here in the middle of nowhere. He laughed and she gave him an apologetic shrug. Sorry, I do like the middle of nowhere at times. No, this house is north of Adelaide, further out from Prospect, and I have a feeling that the region will become one of Adelaide's metropolis as it begins to sprawl. He warmed to this topic, sitting forward eagerly. Fleur, it has to be the next region that will feel the effects of population increase. It's not too hilly and has a near enough straight line to the city. I think they'll build proper roads and they'll start carving up the land quite soon into suburbs, then begin building houses, schools, hospitals, and shops. She turned to regard him with an interesting frown. Tom, you sound convinced. I am. All right, you've thought this through about why people have to live somewhere and the population is exploding. Not everyone can afford to live in North Adelaide or Unley or Norwood. The port is already crowded, Prospect is booming and becoming densely populated, and I reckon they'll just keep going further north from here. So she watched him tense slightly. So I bought it. Fleur resisted the natural response to say pardon in her surprise and have him repeat what she'd heard perfectly well, but it didn't stop her needing to repeat it in her mind to comprehend his words. I don't understand. He gave her a sheepish shrug. Recently I discovered my mother left some money in a trust for me for when I came of age. Oh, Tom, Fleur sighed. Why didn't your father tell you? Given she died long ago, if Dad knew about it, he chose not to mention it. At first, when I found out, I thought he must have wanted me to have it, jealous, perhaps, or maybe he reasoned that we'll never had money, so why have it now? I was doing fine as a wool classer. Dad had an opinion that money, a surplus of it, that is, only causes problems. Irma being a very good example, Fleur said in a dry tone. Tom nodded. He was someone who earned and kept all he had on living. He didn't think to save or aspire, but if he kept it secret, then I forgive him. He wasn't trying to keep it for his own use. He simply didn't want to bring the problem of money into our simple lives, and maybe he never knew. And you're comfortable about the money? Tom gave a slight shift of his shoulder to show he was not entirely convinced, but said, I've reached a place of understanding, perhaps resignation. Regarding that, I think to him this money was likely another reminder of all that he wasn't and could never be. He didn't come from money like my mother, and he didn't have the potential to earn a lot. So I imagine that while he adored Mum, he knew she deserved more, and he never provided much for us other than love and laughter, Fleur said softly. Tom nodded with an appreciative smile. For sure, and in droves, at least until Mum passed away. I think the money also just reminded him about Adelaide and the life she left behind for him. I know from conversations I overheard when I was young, but didn't fully understand that Mum's family never inquired after us. They really did not care, he sighed, but when I came to Adelaide, I remember the solicitor Mum had talked about and learned of this money. I had no idea what to do with it, and then I met you again and you told me your dream, my dream, that you want to open a new business that trains women to be the very best undertakers and morticians, and a specialist funeral home that caters to bereaved parents of newborns and young children. He gave a gentle smile. Fleur felt her emotions being stirred on so many levels. The fact Tom had absorbed her hopes with such gravity it felt like the sun was sending its rays directly into her heart to warm her. But more importantly, they were speaking this aloud as though it was just not as though it was not just plausible but something to follow vigorously, like a new pathway opening for them. Her father had never taken her suggestion very seriously. He had been tolerant of her ideas, appreciative that she was always thinking ahead for the future of the business, but she knew that deep down he was set in his ways. He had felt he had already taken the business into a new era, and Fleur suspected he couldn't quite look forward as far as she could to a time when women might lead a new way in undertaking. Tom, being her own age, a child of the 20th century, well, it meant he was more open to a new age of women's rights and their aspirations. He'd been born to an independent thinker, not manipulated by wealth of society. If anything, Moira Catchlove had defied all the rules and in doing so had raised a son who admired women with agency. I do have a lot of ideas like cremation. It feels primitive, but it's catching on with the liberal-minded and the forward-thinkers who can see that cemeteries are going to become full. Once this happens, they have to start being positioned further and further away. And you know, Tom, Fleur finally said, grateful for his silence while she gathered her thoughts. When I was young and still learning about undertaking and work in the mortuary, a newborn who died didn't give didn't get their own burial. She swallowed. If they could, funeral homes would place a dead child into the coffin of a dead woman, really its mother. They thought the child should be in the arms of a female. She watched his expression, turned slack with surprise. I had no idea. Fleur shook her head. Why would you? And you must understand that this was not cruel. If anything, I believe it was a tenderness being shown. No one wanted to put a tiny newborn into the earth alone. But no one wanted to go to the expense of a coffin and all those trappings. And to this, that at the turn of the century, many children didn't live past the age of 5, so mothers were losing every third or fourth infant. They couldn't possibly afford all the burial fees. My father and other reputable funeral homes never charged for undertaking services for an infant. They felt the sorrow of the loss and showed great empathy. But as a woman in undertaking, I've never thought that was good enough. To lose a person who has lived their life is hard enough, but to lose a child at any age is unimaginable. No one wants to outlive their children, and so I've always felt that we need to do better for grieving parents, especially mothers. And that means everything from how we approach the removal of their child to how we convey them to the mortuary and how we prepare them for their final rest and how we work with the mothers to let them know we understand their grief. I would ensure that their lost babies have their own casket, their own private resting place, and not be buried with a stranger. Tom straightened. So do it. She let out a gasp of soft gasp of surprise and smiled at him. I want to start afresh, she urged. I will build you a funeral home like no other. I've done plenty of carpentry alongside wall classing, and I can learn how to make coffins for you. There's nothing hard about them as I can see, but I'll make each with care that will echo yours. Tom, she sounded breathless, unable to say any more. I have loads of ideas, Fleur, but I didn't want to presume. He admitted, I want to make you tiny white coffins for babies and light wood coffins for children, and I figure I might run some sheep on the land. That way we can have our own wool spun and turn into beautiful miniature blankets that you can give to any bereaved parents to wrap their child in before they lay them to rest. We'll build a chapel at Drummond, and if we pool our resources, we can build you the most modern mortuary with all the proper air extractions and latest equipment. And over there, he gestured with his hands over an imaginary map. Hardy during Jack breath, it seems we could set up a series of gardens with rose arbors in summer and wisteria in spring for you. Because if people are becoming more interested in cremation, they can scatter ashes there or bury them, or have a plaque to commemorate a loved one. That way they can visit the most pretty of scented gardens and remember those they love. We can build a fountain and will embed memorial plaques around it. It would be the only private cemetery and memorial garden in all of South Australia, perhaps the country. Now he did stop talking, searching her face. I didn't know you had so many words to use in one day, Tom. And for once, I'm lost for words. I really don't know what to say. Fleur smiled, knowing her eyes were shining with excitement of all that Tom's words prompted. He waited. Please, Fleur, let me help you make this dream a reality. Just say yes. She nodded. her mind already racing around his ideas. She loved him all the more for thinking so big on her behalf. Yes, he clapped in relief. And the house floor, will you move there with me and make a large family? It's beautiful. You'll love it. She laughed. Who could say no? Yes, we'll turn it from a house into a home. But what about Alberton? Tom's eyes were shining with his own excitement, and she understood now he had a purpose, a big project to mastermind. You don't have to close up shop, he said. You can appoint people and train them to take over when you move up here. Perhaps the manager's jobs comes with a home down there, or maybe you provide it for your staff to use when on shift, because you will always be open for the bereaved. Tom continued, unable to stop the ideas from pouring out. You still want to offer undertaking services to people who know you and count on you. But if you don't mind me saying, I think it will be the best decision you make to leave that house. I know it was once a happy home, but it became a miserable one, leaving all the sorrow behind, Fleur, and build your own home. Fill it with love and laughter and lots of children. She grinned. Her excitement was infectious. Lord and Lady Catchlove of Drummond. This was their last day at Witchelina. Tomorrow they would take the train back to Adelaide and start their new life. But first, Tom explained, he wanted Fleur to experience a moment from his childhood. She allowed herself to be persuaded to journey with him in the dark to his old childhood cottage at Paradise and to climb a tree before the sun rose. Tom helped Fleur to sit beside him in the same coolabah tree that had stood the test of time through drought, wind, rain, and even earthquakes. There was no water in the old creek, but the weather was mild and a soft breeze was tumbling over the range, wafting at her hair. She was wearing her green dress for him. Tom, is this safe? She asked, swatting at tiny flies. Safe as houses. I used to climb up here, and when I was a lad and daydream, I used to sit on this very branch, and now it's supporting both of us. It's as strong as ever. What did you daydream about? About the world out there, how big it was and how much I wanted to see. But now as I sit here, I realize life was simple and good here. She sighed happily. I can see why, can you? She smiled. Listen, he did, waiting for her to explain. I can't hear much above the rustle of the leaves, the bird over there making a racket, and the soft breeze. She frowned. If I really concentrate, I can hear something clanging gently on metal. That's at the railway track, he grinned. Probably some ties come loose at the siding, nothing to worry about. My point is, everything is so still and quiet that I can hear a single bird's song. I grew up around constant noise. I now realize the port was always heaving with people and ships, trucks and animals, machinery that lifted things or pushed things or moved things. I've never really thought about it until now. Men were always shouting or whistling to get others' attention. And then there were the ships themselves, their foghorn announcing their arrival or farewell in Adelaide. The sound of the sea, the sound of the traffic, the sound of people going about their lives. I have never ever known such tranquil surroundings as I do right at this moment. I can hear myself breathe. You're right, but it was lonely growing up in this. You have to get lost in your own imagination. But that's why you can think things through so clearly. You know how to disappear into your thoughts and weigh everything up swiftly. She smiled. Plus the scenery is breathtaking, she said. And it wasn't the desert before her that she was referring to. Her mind was still swollen with vivid images of the grand range of mountains that the train had cut through to bring her here. The Flinders, as Tom referred to them, had mesmerized her, and John had sensed that she didn't wish to talk while they watched their majesty, even as dark shadows in the sky. Out here with this big sky, the horizon seemed to burn golden, while the weight of darkness still hung heavy above. Then the sky behind the shadowy clouds began to lighten, like heaven was waking up, stretching and switching on the lights. And with each yawn and stretch of the soul, she liked to believe, lived there, area of the sky flashlight, their luminosity breaking through the cloudy blankets. In the east, she watched the horizon's cauldron begin to simmer with copper light that continued to change as it broadened its reach into a fresh golden promise of a new day. Mild warmth chased away the night clouds and cleared the sky for morning sun to make its ascent. In awe, Fleur watched as daylight stippled the craggy summits of the ranges with a golden burnish that soon became long sweeps of colour picking out the faces of the rocks against their still purple and brooding depths. The rocks turned red and then bronze until they finally gave way as the guards snaked from the glass of the mountain jagged peaks to emerge fully into the great outback of South Australia, where the rusted earth stretched for as far as she could see. She threw out her arms and repeated her words. Breathtaking! Tom caught one of her arms. Be careful. I don't fret my body knows how to carry a child like every pregnant woman who has gone before me. Yes, but none of them were carrying our child, Tom pointed out in an arch tone. Fleur leaned into him. It is exciting. When I'm not feeling nauseated, I told Claire I was having a baby. He gave her a look of surprise before me. She grinned sadly. I had to tell someone, and you'd run out on me. Before he could object, she kissed him. You know, I don't mean that. But I was bursting, and there's just something about her. She has wisdom that I appreciate. She's a nurse. She's seen a lot. Yes, but it's more than that. I think Claire celebrates life. Losing Alfie must have been so hard, and yet in all that sorrow, she somehow found time for her other children, time for Jamie, time to feel pleasure in my news, a kind of balance, so I felt joyous, not hesitant in sharing it. I've learned that she was stationed in the Middle East during the war, and then she volunteered to go to the front line in France with artillery dropping all around her. She didn't care. She lost faith in life for a while because she believed Jamie died. She told me she found her way back through the friendship of a former enemy. Believe it or not, I can't wait to hear the whole story. Something to do with a Turkish scholar in Istanbul who was very kind to her at a time when she felt so alone and without a compass. His compassion and companionship brought her back from a dark place, and then she found Jamie again. Theirs is a magnificently romantic tale, and I think Claire just knows to look for and hold on tight to all the good bits. Tom nudged her. I think our story is romantic too, given we first kissed when we were 8 and then we were separated for 2 decades. She gave him a soft, playful shove in return. You're right, especially in spite of people trying to keep us apart. And now you're Mrs. Catchlove. She nodded. Never been happy either. I decided as I woke up to this beautiful morning that I'm going to call the new business Appleby and Catchlove. Catchy, he admitted, his dry tone making her laugh. Seriously though, it has a rhythmic elegance, and it keeps the memory of my father strong all the way back through the Appleby men who pioneered the funeral business, but it starts a new era. She placed a hand on her belly. Maybe this little Catchlove in here might follow and take on the role in the company. Fleur, I think it's perfect, and I'm proud to be part of it. She leaned in to kiss him and wondered if the boy she met so long ago had dreamed of kissing a girl in this tree. He made her smile. Tom, I doubt you'd ever appreciate how much confidence you gave me, but you do it in a way that makes me feel strong without having to be brusque or quite as prickly as perhaps I used to be. What's more, I haven't had support or affection of this kind since my mother died. Ditto, Tom said, and stopped her saying any more by kissing her again. They heard a foghorn sound in the distance. Ah, there it is, Tom said, leaping easily down from the branch and landing lightly in the creek bed in such familiar fashion that Fleur knew he'd jumped from his branch many dozens of times. Come on, let me help you down. I'm pregnant, not an invalid. He ignored her remark and showed her where to put her feet to clamber back down. I wanted to jump. That takes years of practice, he said in a teasing tone, grabbing her hand and twirling her around the lower reaches of the tree and down to the red earth. Fleur gave a soft gasp of awe, and Tom followed her gaze to where the highest branch were hosting feathered visitors. Galahs, he said. Do you know I've never seen one before? You're kidding, right? She shook her head. They really are very bright pink, aren't they? Beautiful, she sighed. Noisy too, he admitted. Well, if they impress you, let's hope you see a Malay ringneck. Now that's a parrot to stare at. He's turquoise and orange, yellow and green. He's got violet and chocolate, and across his beak is a red stripe with a lemon scarf around his neck. She looked back at him with a look of mistrust. I tell no lie, Fleur, honest, they really are beautiful. Well, find me one, she demanded. He laughed. At night we get geckos, and you'll find skinks scuttle around everywhere. There's even a legless lizard that will convince you it's a snake and send you hurling in the other direction. She took his hand. Tom, I'm terrified of snakes. Have you seen one? Only at the zoo. That was a python. Look, the snake out here are some of the most venomous in the world, but they're pretty shy. We make a lot of noise. We make a lot of noise just walking on the land, and they feel us coming, and they take off, feel us. Our footsteps vibrate across the earth. She laughed, clasping her hands. Brilliant, and you're not scared. I'm respectful and wary of them. You learn to be cautious around wood piles or dark corners or boots that have been left too long somewhere. He grinned. I've heard all the stories, but if we're careful, we don't have to fear them. They fear us more. No, I'm sorry, but I don't believe you. It's not like you can accidentally tread on one and offer up an apology. He laughed aloud. Well, that's true. So out here you can learn how to live around all the dangers and take the right precautions. She gave another shuddering groan. I think you have to grow up around it. Like you in a mortuary, I guess. What you do would frighten a lot of people. Fleur stared at her husband before nodding. You're right. And for me, it's second nature, so I struggle to put myself into their shoes and feel what they fear. There you go. That's how bushies feel about snakes, spiders, scorpions, and so on. I think you're one of the most insightful people I've ever known, Tom. He looked around, smiling shyly at the compliment. When you're raised in a place like this, the place that guards the knowledge of the world and pay attention to it, then I guess it helps shape your judgment. Fleur gave a smile, wild and full of loving warmth. I adore the romantic way you think. The foghorn sounded again, closer this time. Is that the train? She demanded, frowning. Yes, the one from Adelaide. As a boy, I waited for that sound sitting in the coolabah, and the moment I heard it this close, I began to run like this. He took off one hand, clasping it to his hat, and the other grasping her hand. Come on. Fleur let out a shriek of abasement. Why? She said, and was so glad she worn the flatters of her shoes, because it was a ritual for me. He said as they galloped along. I had to arrive at the train as the train went fast and feel all the breath it brought hundreds of miles from the big city. He yelled. I used to believe it brought voices and amusement, tears and secrets. Come on, Fleur, faster. Can you do it? I told you, pregnant, not incapable. She increased her stride and to match his, although she knew he was letting her catch up and probably go faster. Jump, Tom called, and Fleur cackled with a laugh of the most carefree kind as they leapt in unison over a small cotton bush. Now she could see it. The steam train's engine emerged into her view, and its horn sounded loudly once more. Perhaps the driver could see them, but even if he couldn't, it sounded joyful, and their yells in response were full of welcome. Faster, Fleur. I want you to feel as it passes. She couldn't believe she had the stamina to do so, but somehow she found it within her, and they reached the tracks just as the huge metal beast powered past them. Fleur watched Tom arch his back and close his eyes to the sky as she did the same, feeling the wallop of the air that the train pushed over them. Tom was wearing an almost dopey grin, and she felt a rush of affection for this man who had brought true love into her life, something she never thought would happen for her, and he had brought new life into hers with the baby nestling and growing within. And as the roar of the train continued towards the final yards of its track, Fleur felt her own sense of power bloom inside and awakened to a new knowledge. Finally, she alone was in charge of her life. She would never think of herself as an orphan again. She would never seek permission to do as she wished, because decisions were now hers to make. In less than a year, life had tipped dramatically. She was a wife, soon to be mother. She was the owner of her own business, and with it, she was going to change the face of the industry that had kept her frozen out of its inner sanctum. She already knew women were going to turn the funeral industry on its head for the better, and Fleur intended to be at the helm, driving that change. And here, with the man she loved more than anything in the world, clasping his hands as they ran across this timeless land, she made the decision to live her life to the fullest. Life could be short, she knew that better than most, but she would not allow time to be stolen from them, and she would not allow herself ever to be too busy to capture this moment of childlike abandon and pleasure. She felt in this moment that no endeavour, no wealth, no status, and no reputation could ever match the feeling of well-being that loving someone and being loved in return brought. The train passed them, and Tom turned, his cheeks flushed with happiness, and as if the gods themselves had orchestrated it, they both lifted their faces to the sun and yelled into the roar of steam their own cries of sheer joy to be alive, to be together, and to belong to someone. Orphans no more. Thanks for listening.